Want to take a hafsika to eat?
You decide? No, I don't need to.
Okay. So, you moved to Jerusalem. Before we get to that, you were living on a moshav.
Yes.
In the Galilee, in the Galil.
No, in Emek Israel, in Valley Israel.
Right, Emek Israel. We'll make that distinction. It's kind of just south of that.
Yes, it's just the south of the lower Galilee, under Nazareth, under the house of Christo, where he brought up.
So, living there,
yes,
growing up on a moshav, which is a farm community.
Yes. Russian moshav. Russian moshav, very tough.
Hard-working.
Hard-working, peasants in all means. The second generation, the generation of my father, was against culture. My grandmother was absolutely top culture. They interested in opera, in music, Pushkin, books, reading. But the second generation was interested with farming, protecting Israel, defend Israel, army, parachute, and my father is from the same class of Raful, and Raful said.
And Raful is, so what people know.
Yes, he was the chief of staff of Israel, the head of the parachute in Israel, one of the biggest heroes of Israel history. He said, there is no culture in Tel Adashim, my village. We are not interested in that. Of course, I admired Raful and I was close to him when he was in life, but in this case he was wrong. It was culture, and I was interested in culture. My grandmother was interested in culture. I think also his father and his mother. But it was different attitude. It was a different atmosphere. Of course, to be born in a place like this, and more, if we can consider that 5 from the 7 big heroes of the history of Israel is coming from Tel Adashim, like Kushi, like Isararel, like Meir Zion, like Raful, which is unbelievable. It can give the atmosphere that the question is how a dancer born in such a place is natural. But I had nothing to do with this. I was dancing, and they knew I'm dancing, and because I was dancing, and it was very important, the being together, and the parties, and the Independence Day party, of course, was very important in Tel Adashim. And the wedding, when somebody gets married, it was all the village invited, and you have to do shows, and I was there.
And so you performed.
I perform, and I prepare the show, and I collect the kids, and I create dances. So I was very much involved in the cultural life of Tel Adashim, but no cultural life in Tel Adashim.
And how did your mother respond to all of this? She was a Holocaust survivor, is that right?
Yes. My mother is a Holocaust survivor. It's a whole story, and she was. First, you have to know that she's Polish, yes, from Warsaw. Noble family, very rich family that lost everything in the Holocaust time, and she and her father, her brother survived. But in the Polish society, for my lucky, very important what the neighbor says. And it was suddenly starting to be said that I'm very talented to dance. And if she will not send me to a professional teacher, it's a shame. And Yaron Kadman, which was a star in the company of Kadmon, that was the first big success, Israeli success as a company. It was a more folk company, but very important. It was a say in Israel, and Tel Adashim was a village place, and the folk was very much respected. So he wanted me to come to the Kadmon company when I was 16. My parents refused because I had to leave the school for a year and to travel all over the world. So I was not joined Jonathan Carmon, but Giora influenced my mother and my father to send me to Yardena Cohen. So I was permitted to dance with Yardena. They were willing to pay. I get, of course, a scholarship from Yardena, and I came. They pay, I think, for one class, but I came 3 times a week or something. Maybe moving there all day, afternoon, all the classes, the kids, the adults, the teachers, all the classes, and I was like the son of Yardena Cohen. After classes, I came to her house. I saw the way she's living. It was very strange for me because she was the first to live on health food. She gave you when you come dates and nuts, not ice cream and chocolate, things like this. It was amazing for the whole world for me, not only the dance but their life, their books. And my mother hated it. She couldn't stand that another woman in my life and so strong. So it was like an agreement that I can dance, I can read with Yardena Cohen, but no more. I cannot talk about it. I couldn't talk about it.
So you didn't really have anybody to talk to about that experience within the family?
Yes. I think maybe that's why all the world of dance for me, it was always, in my private life, it was always secret. I was always giving interview. Always, I was very, very, very famous in those times. The interview for me was on 3, 4, 5 pages. But if you read them, I never spoke about my life. I think it's the first time that I'm willing to speak about my life is with you, but our friendship is already 6 years, so...
It's about time.
Yes, I feel more comfortable.
Where did you go from there after Sheva and the other companies?
And it was the name was the Jerusalem Dance Workshop. Later on, they changed the name. I was not there when it was changed. The ensemble, Jerusalem Ensemble, I think, but it was still the Flora Kushman, the company. I had 2 changes. One, first I should say, Flora created for me Nigun, a solo. She was important choreographer, and it was very important for me that she did the solo for me. At the same time, Anna Sokolov came again to Israel. She looked for me. She found that I'm not in Batsheva. So she came to Yerushalayim to create for me poem. Very, very, very important dance affair. And all the rehearsal was taking shooting, you say like this, in a television of I think
they filmed it.
They filmed it. Yes, one of the American television filmed it. ABC, I think it can be.
Yeah. Why not?
I don't remember which one, but there is a copy of it in the whole thing, not edited, of the Library of Dance in Israel. You want to stop for a second?
No, just want to get his attention. Go ahead.
And so I started to gain more and more solos, and that pushed me to think about creating my own recital. But in those times, talking about 1977 was my first recital. 1 year before, in Batsheva, I would do it. It's raining, היורה הגיע.
Oh wow. Tel Aviv, rain.
I love the first rain in this year. So I made Tirsa Shpanov in Batsheva. she was already 5 or 6 years a student of Moshe Feldenkrais,
Feldenkrais.
the famous Feldenkrais. Moshe Feldenkrais those time was absolutely not famous. He had a class for 12 or 15 old people that has problem with the back and things like this. Yeah, people didn't know how to speak about him, but because he is the one that did some training to Ben Gurion and taught him how to stand on the head for his health.
You mean that famous picture of Ben Gurion on Tel Aviv beach, standing on his head, came from Feldenkrais?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Fantastic.
Feldenkrais was a teacher of Ben Gurion, and it's a true story. But so, because the great Ben Gurion was doing some exercise with Feldenkrais, you couldn't say that he is a cuckoo. But nobody took him seriously. But Tirza did. And she was the only one person in the world of the dance that was interested with his work. Of course she, and I was very much amazed because I was, as I said, I was searching and I was looking for honest things. I couldn't understand the ideas of Martha Graham's technique. I came from school from biology department, and all the idea of Martha of using the body had no logic for me, according to my knowledge about anatomic basic things. And I said it loud. It was not permitted to talk about God like this. But when I saw that she's wrong, she was not anymore God for me, and I was maybe one of the first people in the world that came against her. Today almost nobody uses her thing. I think nobody wants to see her work, but I was starting to put doubts on her, and I said it loud in Batsheva while we were drinking coffee in the break and things like this. And one of the people that were listening to me was Tirza, and she wanted to know what I have against. And I said to her what I have against, but I didn't know what to do. She said to me, maybe I can show you some exercise by Feldenkrais. And I said to her, but Moshe Feldenkrais know nothing about dance. What is this? She said to me, but maybe his idea will help you with your knowledge. So I started to do some exercise by him. It was very interesting, but it has no dance basic. You couldn't think about to take all these little things and to think you can become a dancer from this. I said to her something like, Celia, you know what? I think if I can stretch myself from the bar and somebody will make massage on me, that muscle will relax, will lead to more results. To me, but it's impossible. I don't know if it's impossible. It is not part of our thinking. But if dancers can start the day holding themselves in the bar and to leave all this space empty and to be a dancer, maybe it has more logic than to close yourself. And we start to look for these things, idea, and she tried to bring the Feldenkrais idea of relaxation into the gram, and of course immediately we came to yoga. But yoga was too static for me. But I was already very deep involved in searching new technique for dance.